Alrighty. Hello everybody. My name is Ethan Shuck, and I did my project for this GIS class over crime avoidance, specifically with routes in mind. First and foremost, let's start off with some of the background for this project and the objectives that I kind of wanted to complete for this project. For my project, I wanted to use GIS to make routes that sort of evaded locations with high crime rates. And I wanted these routes to then be sort of optimal and as efficient as possible in terms of like people's times on the road. And then I also wanted to allow for the users of this product to customize how it works in order for them to use it to the best of their ability and for their needs and to keep safe in their cities. Alright, data used. First off, let's talk about the data that I didn't use. I really wanted to do this project at a lot larger scale, a lot more like city scale than what I did. And there was an example piece of data that was in the description of this project. That was the Chicago crime database. But unfortunately, when I tried over and over again to download it, and I just didn't download for some reason. So I then decided that I would just kind of make my own example criminal data, kind of DIY it, and it consisted of only 20 points in its layer, which is not too much, but I think it worked. I then also decided to go and reuse the network analysis tutorial too, which came with its own network dataset, which made it a lot easier to make my own routes. Didn't have to set up too much stuff. Alright, so workflow. First off, I sort of made a feature class for my DIY crime data, or sort of a table for it, and it consisted of a unique identifier on this object ID. It had a shape, which it didn't do too much, and I also added a type of crime for each point and a severity. And we'll talk about the buffer distance later. Severity is where the customizability for the users comes in play, in which they can, decide which crime they want to steer clear from most by applying the numbers 1 through 4, 4 being, the least desirable crime to be around. After that, I then made 2 domains. Don't worry about these other domains, that's what came with that tutorial that we had. And the first one was the crime type domain, which sort of applied a type of crime to each individual point, which allows for this selection when you're adding in more data points. Secondly, I then made the severity domain, which kept the numbers between 1 and 4. And after I did that, I then did some field calculations to make sure that the crime types and the severity aligned with each other. I then around populating these fields by popping 20 points around San Francisco. The next half of my workflow, I started off by trying to make these buffers around each of the points of crime, and the size of the buffers were based off of the severity, which is what we saw a little while ago, and it ranged from 100 to 500 meters based off of severity. So if you put 4 onto theft, then you would have a barrier of about 500 meters in width around that point location. I then went and translated these buffers into barriers so that the route would be able to recognize them. In my use of this tool, I sort of made the buffers completely block out the routes because of the small amount of crimes that I had. But if I were to have used that Chicago dataset, which would have had a lot more than 20, then it would probably have been a lot more wise to make the barriers into scaled cost instead of just completely stopping the route. So it would add a cost to them. And after creating all of that, I was then able to make, this example route that I made with 5 stops. And I sort of randomized what severities were and made a lot of different types of barriers that you can see around here. On the left we can see the entire map, and on the right side I kind of zoomed in this section So you can definitely see how it definitely went away from these barriers. And yeah, that's my project. Thanks.